Afternoon, dear friends. Now let us start our session. Well, just a minute. We will launch the countdown.
Итак, начинаем.
Well, let us start. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear partners, dear comrades. We may address you with the kindest words because we're working together in the area of transport, which is related to tourism. It is impossible to build hotels and to invest millions of rubles in these facilities without providing transport accessibility. Our territory is vast. We cannot use heavy aircraft everywhere. Thus, our basic topic is light aircraft. My name is Ilya Zotov. I'm the member of All Russian Passenger Association and one of the co-organizers of this session. I'll be the moderator of this event within the framework of our platform. The representatives of airlines and the industry, the experts, will participate in our session. Our foreign colleagues will also share the experience about the pandemic. They will tell us about the problems of the industry. Our commission is the protocol for our future work, for our joint work. The members of working group on civil aviation under the Ministry of Transport in Russia are participating in our session. We are not only going to post beautiful photos in social networks. We will drive the industry and sustain the industry. We would like both heavy and light aircraft to garner support. The helicopter area hasn't been supported within the context of the actions aimed at rescuing the industry. Thus, the co-organizer of this event is Russian helicopters. Let us give the floor to this company. Now we will listen to the word of remarks initiated by the host party. Thank you for receiving us here in this hall. We can contact each other face to face. Mutual cooperation is also welcomed. We would like to implement all these projects which we voice. And now the floor goes to Avia, the Vice Minister of Transport and Road Industry of Bashkortostan. Thank you, Ilya. Good afternoon, dear friends, dear guests of the event. Let me greet you at our session on behalf of the Ministry of Transport. Our today's session, our roundtable aimed at the transport accessibility of tourist destinations, general and light aircraft, is evident. Transport accessibility of transport infrastructure will be dealt with. Thus, we have to improve accessibility of tourist destinations. It is one of key drivers of touristic cluster. Now, let us start our discussion, and I wish us all fruitful cooperation. Thank you very much. Bashkortostan is truly hospitable. Now the floor goes to the advisor of the holding of the GST Russian helicopters, Vyacheslav Kachsev. Unfortunately, Andrei Baginsky is in Far East. This doesn't allow him to be involved in the event. Vyacheslav, can you hear us and can you see us? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Can you hear me? Well, the floor is yours, Vyacheslav. Thank you. Dear colleagues, good afternoon. I'm happy to welcome you. Fortunately, all of you are healthy. Let me express my gratitude to the organizers and the moderator for having me here. On behalf of Russian helicopters, we all understand that the aviation area is facing a challenging time period due to the restrictions related to the epidemiological situation. The aviation enterprises have to survive. In 2020, we expect the decline in transports by 15%. And last year it was 16 million passengers. The Russian Exploitant Association of Aircraft expects the losses of the airline of the Russian Federation in 2020. It will constitute 350 billion rubles. Given the deteriorated scenario of the epidemiological situation, we cannot forecast the prospects of the new economic crisis, of the scale of the recession. Still, we may believe that the takeaways of the crisis in the airline are still visible right now. Let us now get down to the presentation provided by the holding. And let me outline our holding's background information. The managing company is part of Russian helicopters as well as helicopter plants. There are 5 helicopter plants distributed across the Russian Federation. Russian helicopters are exploited in more than 100 countries. Over 8,000 Russian helicopters are exploited all over the world. 39,000 qualified experts work for the holding, and each 7th helicopter is manufactured here, which constitutes the 13% of the global helicopter fleet. We are striving for reaching 50% civil sector provision. Here you can see the range of models. Today we will dwell upon the military and the civil helicopters. Now we will deal with a civil application of helicopters, its commercial use and social use. We all know that aircraft is actively used when we provide for aviation enterprises. We also carry out such work as assembly, cargo transportation, tourism, and taxi. There is also private and social use of aircraft, which is aimed at protecting people and natural resources. Helicopters are also used in firefighting and forest protection. They are also engaged in sanitary aviation in the medical area where we would like to rescue people, and in emergency. Sometimes it is very hard to reach the point from which people have to be evacuated. Our aircraft mobility and population mobility also matter. The competition is becoming rigid right now. We pay attention to the efficiency of the aircraft. The role of aircraft at providing for transport infrastructure is also important. It is expedient to use them when the infrastructure is that vast. For instance, in different airports. Given our population it is expedient to build costly airports and aerodromes. They may also be used at local itineraries. It is justified. Sometimes our recreation venues and our tourist destinations are located in the remote areas. It is very hard to pave the way to these areas. Airports and aerodromes cannot become the recreation area due to their low accessibility. Helicopters do not require maintenance and construction of costly aerodromes constructions. Next slide, please. Let me dwell upon the trends, the global trends of transport development. You are fully aware of this. Still, let us draw a focus on this issue. In 2015, the network of public transport was initiated and the number of fleets was also increased. In 2015-2020, car-sharing services emerged. We cannot even imagine our life without these services. We can also make prospects for 2025. Cars become autonomous. In 2035, individual mobility means will be implemented. The public transport will become different and autonomous. The taxi services are integrated into transport flows. We are also testing hybrid electric technology, as well as driverless technologies. And according to the estimation of the world consulting companies and public regulations in the area of transport, in 2030, 2035, people will reject their personal transport, personal cars. The technology technology applied to cars will become automated. Will also increase reliability of these transport means. Unmanned transport vehicles will also appear. Since 1990s, we have also been using them. We apply charter flights at the request of itinerary flights. You are also aware of the countries and the regions which are actively using helicopters as a method of delivering people, passengers, and tourists. Global leaders are shaping the unified approach aimed at promoting helicopter taxi. It is an information platform for connecting the passengers with certified airline operators. We apply light helicopters, the capability of which constitutes 6 people. The itinerary sticks to the schedule or to the request. And as for the pricing policy of passenger transportation, should be comparable with taxi transportation. Why is helicopter taxi actively developed in the Russian Federation? We should organize the aggregation of aviation and airline flows. We also need the itinerary network and the saturation of the helicopter infrastructure integrated in the multimodal transportation network. New touristic services allow us to project the cultural, educational, recreation in Moscow. There is a digital platform in Moscow which is applied by hotels. It connects the tourist destinations with all the necessary infrastructures.
Примеры дестинаций авиационного транспорта.
Here you can see the examples of aircraft destinations. They are well known, you can see them in the slide. These are existent aviation transport destinations. And it is the only transport available there. For example, the Maldives. And there is a new project in China, LN Holding. They built an entire hotel integrating electric unmanned aircrafts. And they regard to their technical parameters, they are not efficient enough for settling global issues, but such cases are emerging and are used. The Russian Federation uses helicopters a lot in Kamchatka, in Altai, for example, Altai Avia Company. Next slide, please. What factors attract tourism in the term of helicopter transport? The main theses are not shown, but I'd like to tell you just. Any sphere of tourism consists of infrastructure of hotels, transports, and so on. A helicopter can be a connecting element that will allow to transfer people to the destination. Next one, please. Let me provide you with a range of models that can be interesting for passengers. For example, large aircraft with 30 people on board, touristic transfers like 715 passengers, K-62 helicopter, and individual transfers like the one that we are developing right now is T-500. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. I'm not going to steal your time anymore. There is the last slide that allows to... Just a second. Could you please open the last slide? Could you please comment on it? The key factors of success have not been shown, but anyway, I can repeat them. Let's see the following itinerary between Moscow and Yalta. We all spend this time on the road, and it takes a lot of time. For someone, it's funny to watch through the window, to get maybe some satisfaction of it. You may have recently heard that Pobeda Airlines launched a program with charter flights Vnukovo, and they sold out all the tickets within a few hours. But if you travel with your family, if you are facing a tough road, we go to the destination like here. You come there tired, and we would like to cut the time spent on the road. For example, if you go to from Moscow to Yalta, you buy a ticket and cut the time. And you move between the aircraft and taxi, and we can cut the time spent on these transitions. If we go to Altai, for example, and if you visit Belokuriha destination, you would find it even more efficient to use a helicopter to get there. What would I draw your attention to? As I said in the beginning, I would like to say that helicopters are involved not only for passengers. This is the machinery that can be at the same time used in generally for transportation mobility and for settling social issues, such as evacuation and medical evacuation of people. It is really urgent for such an epidemiological situation that fluctuates all the time. For example, we can transfer also patients with diagnosed coronavirus. Thank you very much, Vyacheslav. I give the floor to the president of Federation of General Purpose Aviation and co-owner of Pervushina Airport. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I am the head of the federation that is 30 years old, and I am a co-founder of Pervushina Aerodrome in the Republic of Bashkortostan. It will be 10 years old next year. And last year I became the president of the federation, and I moved nearby. In Moscow, our vice presidents are working. What I'd like to say is, for the first of all, I would like to put things in order. The situation is difficult, it is complicated, it is historically complicated. The aviation has never been cheap. Once it was created, it was affordable in certain periods when we all were encouraged to travel by planes. But we live in the time when everything that can be discovered has been discovered, and we shift to unmanned aircrafts. In the early 19s, we managed to discover the sky, and in 1961 we already were in space. I would like to focus mostly not on the unmanned aircrafts, but on manned aircrafts. So aviation is a term. Light aviation is a term. It is a civil aviation not used for commercial air transportation. It is meant for aviation works. Light aircrafts is a general image that allows to distinguish light aircrafts from Boeings. There are a lot of synonyms for light aircrafts, but generally we don't have a lot of pieces of this aircraft because our companies do not create small aircrafts from 1 to 9 people of the crew. We usually focus on the crew that equals to 20, 40 or more. What is aviation in Russia? We have approximately 106 commercial exploiters that deal in the transfer by air, and they have been licensed according to the regulation of the Russian Federation. Secondly, we have approximately 210 aviation works companies. They do not transfer any passengers. These are Federal Aviation Rules 249. We have a lot of types of works like photographing, fire extinguishing, chemical protection, and so on. We have 86 aviation training centers where we train specialists that are going to work in the aviation. These are aviation employees, and 12 centers of those prepare pilots that will pilot the general purpose aviation. The goals of general aviation are not only the commercial flights. And according to these facts, we have 3 major strategies for the development of aircraft tourism. It's not a mistake that I have 3 first. First of all, we transfer passengers by commercial airlines, for example, to come from Moscow to Ufa and then get to the car and leave. The second type is travelers. Travelers are those who own private jets. They go to different venues, visit museums, and travel. These are indirect incomes. We provide aviation services to the popular touristic destinations. We have a unique place, Shulgantash Cave, and we have an aerodrome there. It was created in the USSR period, and it is 12 kilometers away from Burzyan. You can watch to this place from overlook. Then we have little airlines that can provide the local needs on little aircrafts. We don't have any certain principles, and we just comply with the general 2, 4, 6 requirements. But they are not sometimes applicable to little crafts. For example, we cannot bear large stuff. You need to understand that aviation is divided as cars according to their weight, passenger number. We have different driver's license for motorcycles, for cars, for trucks, and so on. And we have like light aircrafts. It usually includes planes, and this arrow shows the range of the weight. Then we have helicopters. All the light aircrafts are up to 5,700 kilograms. If they are heavier, they take much more efforts. And we have a brand new thing that is pretty expensive. And mostly these aircrafts are used by commercial exploiters. For example, if they have long-term workers, they can bring them to the destination. We also have super light aircrafts. There are 14 types of extra light aircrafts. And there are multiple ranges of times, 14 in general. It is the truth of our life. And this range is really diverse because it is more affordable. What is the small aviation like in Russia today? The number of aircrafts is about 7,500. Don't be scared of this outside the legal framework. And it means that you afforded the plane, but you didn't afford its maintenance. And they don't have a full package of documents. Aerodromes and airports. We have approximately 4,000 places where you can land. And if you consider those that have infrastructure like hotels, radio, communications, there are 60 of them. Aviation specialists like pilots, with engineers, with technicians, about 9,000 people. Training centers that prepare pilots, there are 12 of them. We have 25 manufacturers of aviation crafts, and they are not licensed because if you want to create full assembly of machineries, it will cost you about 50 million rubles. What about air clubs? We have about 350, 400 clubs with different registration. They exist both as legal entities and as just communities. These are places where you can come on an aircraft. For example, that's Мечково Airport, Большое Болдино. There is an aerodrome there. I discovered it last year. I had to land there. And now I can tell where you can go there. For example, you can go to the fortresses of Kaliningrad, you can land on Elbrus, you can land at Kazan-Kremlin, Kugursky Cave, Shulgantash Cave, Sayany in Krasnoyarsk City. And Tsemlyanskaya water body also has an aerodrome there. How it looks like in Bashkortostan today. We exploit approximately 100 vehicles. We have 38 sites where you can land. They are facilitated because we actively use aircraft. I guess Bashkortostan is really lucky with the aviation. It has been cultivated a lot because we have an Ufa Aviation University here. And that's why they're oriented on the production of aviation crafts. We have one training center, 150 specialists, 2 manufacturers of small aircrafts, one in Ufa and one in Kumertau. We have 5 air clubs and approximately 10 sites for airports where you can land. That is a place of touristic pilgrimage. These are the places where you can land and see anything on your own plane or a helicopter. For example, Pervushina outside Ufa, Shulgantash, Muradymovskaya Cave, Mratkina ski resort, Monadnox and Slavat Yulaev Cave, Pavlovskaya water body, Kondrakul Lake and Nikola Berezovka village near Neftekamsk. There is a wide range of ancient architecture.
Let us now look at the global figures. In Western Europe, there are 110,000 aircraft. In Great Britain, there are the numbers, and there are 7.5 aircraft in Russia. We haven't calculated the numbers for 2018, and we have calculated 205 hours. Unfortunately, no one has exceeded the number of 7,000, the number of aerodromes. There are over than 4,000 aerodromes in Europe. There are 170 pilots in Europe, but we have only 9,000 of them. Our contribution to Europe is 30 billion euro in Europe, and no one has calculated these figures in Russia. How can we estimate this contribution to the US economy? And we have estimated it at the example of the US because the Americans started reflecting on it. We implemented the PwC company, which allowed them to estimate the contribution of the US. We transferred it in March 2020. Their general aviation is a large-scale industry where airline is implemented. There are lots of flights. And they accentuated because we have already mentioned at the plenary session that the Americans do not tend to leave the USA. There are 50 states of America and one district, which is Columbia District. They have more than 1 million jobs. And their turnover is also seen on the slides. It is taken from the open sources. As for the number of pilots, There are over 2,000 pilots, and there is also the area augmentation of aircrafts. It constitutes up to 3,000 units. And exploitation terms also matter. Spare parts cost $34 billion. The total number of flights is also shown. Unless the pilots travel between the states, the cost for them constitute over $1 billion, almost $2 billion. Still, 19 aerodromes maintain the general aviation in the USA. It is very hard to fly there right now due to several reasons. But when you arrive at the federal airport, you'll see the aviation stall there. Now I have 3 slides, please, which compare all the situations. I will not dwell upon it. Let me just outline it in a couple of words. It is just a professional history. Yes, let us flick through these slides. You may estimate these figures for yourself. I'll leave my contacts and maybe you'll be interested in them. As far as you know, we need to ponder on the mass market, which will be achieved by means of accessibility. If we don't create the best exploiters and the best pilots, they will have to provide for 85 territories of our country. It will be feasible by means of upmarket, by means of augmentation. If we promote it right now, the number of aircrafts will also increase. It will be comparable with the US. If we improve our legislation and everyone receives a plane, there will be lots of aircrafts. It will be developed. We would like to wish us all to start as soon as possible. We have to pave our own way in this domain. Still, we live in another era. We have to move forward. Thank God we are working in this area. We know how we can support the pilots. It is time to change our mindset. Unmanned aviation will not substitute anything because we're alive. Our emotions are also alive, and we will strive for the better results. Of course, virtual technology will also contribute to it. General aviation exists in the world, and it is currently being developed. We will do our utmost to reach the level of the global powers. Thank you, Sergey. Let us applaud. Applause. You should also do everything in practical terms in the industry. Apart from being an expert, you're an ambassador of this movement. If we have more people who are interested in this area in our country, we will achieve better results. Let us now move on to the airline problems and to their success, how they managed to overcome the pandemic. Now the floor goes to Vadim Dolev, the head of sales service and income management. Can you hear us? He's from Azur Air. Yes. We had 2 key presentations on this subject. Now we come to short, brief presentations which will last for 5 minutes so that everyone could have enough time for presentation. Vadim, the floor is yours. So thank you. I'll be succinct. Let me outline Azur Air Company and also the key changes in the largest charter traveler which has adapted to the current global situation. Azur Air is a Russian charter company which is based in Moscow airport in Vnukovo. The company has initiated its work under this brand about 5 years ago, and this airline positioned itself as a large charter company which is operating within large charter operators. Being a charter company, it is now which shows its best awards in the world. The company has the multiple fleet of aircrafts, different modifications, and also wide fuselage aircraft. As for the regular airline, we are increasing the expenditure. But being the charter transporter, we comply with any demand of the travel agencies, and we also adapt to the market changes. It was of prime importance in 2020. What happened to us when the borders were closed? First and foremost, the company has developed the regular network of certain directions to the sea. We became the regular transporter. I mean, online registration and transparent registration. You can see that open online registration is one of our achievements. Being a charter airline, we managed to do it, although it was challenging. When Turkey was opened, well, the previous slide, please. When Turkey was opened on the 10th of August, the summer program was also launched, and Turkey became our key tourist destination. Rostov, St. Petersburg, and Moscow airports got access to international trips. We organized a hub in Rostov, which allowed us to carry out these flights. And the residents of other cities were also allowed to travel abroad. The next slide, please. What happened when the summer program came to an end? Eastern Asia and Emirates became of prime importance for tourists. Still, they're closed. And Tanzania became our good alternative. You can see it on the slide. It is a new tourist destination for Russian cities. Our aircrafts contributed to it. There are lots of Russian cities, and over 15,000 passengers have been transported in our country. Our other tourist destinations are Cuba and with the Maldives. We are applying the remote fleet. Still, it is very hard to find the tourist destinations for remote areas. What has the pandemic taught us? It is of prime importance to have a chance to travel at any season. We have developed the New Year program of flights within the Russian Federation, and it is based on alpine skiing. When we project the summer program, we will consider the Russian domestic destinations. We should diversify the business. We do not only need to have tourist destinations and sell them while having extra packages. We also need regular travelings, and we have to insure ourselves.
What about the safety for this period? The air companies spend a lot of efforts to provide it. We provide individual protection means, and we comply with the regulations of airports in order to prevent the spread of the virus. In this slide, you can see that our network is pretty scary because we have a lot of cities in there. And what about the forecasts for 2021? It is very difficult to say, but we are ready to recover our network once it is possible. And we pay a lot of attention to the itinerary regular flights, including the touristic destinations. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Vadim. Have good luck. We congratulate you with the victory in the award, being the best charter transportation company. I'd like to give the floor to the Japanese airlines. I know that we have Margarita Kalabashkina online. She is a representative of Japanese airlines. Can we have her online, please? Good afternoon, Margarita. If you see us, if you hear us, we are happy to greet you. Before the Russian aviation company, Russian airline, was reporting, tell us how your airline managed through the pandemic. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am greeting you on behalf of Japanese Airlines company, and I'd like to share our initiatives that we proposed during these tough times for every single airline. Next slide, please. Thank you. In the beginning, I'd like to introduce our company. We were created a long time ago. From Moscow to Tokyo, we have been flying since 1967. It is a national airline, and we are the member of the Alliance of Airlines. I will be brief in general. The fleet consists of 240 vehicles. 214 vehicles are owned by the company, and 26 are leased. And it affected the fact that during the pandemic, we managed to cut our expenditures. Moreover, JAL is not only the aviation business, it is a holding. On the right bottom corner, you see that 67% of our business are engaged into aviation and 23.3% are engaged in the other businesses. Next slide, please. Of 76.7% of our business by March 2020, why I say this, because the financial year in Japan, 2019, ends up in March 2020. So that's why all the open available data are made by March, and the cargo and post transportation reached 6.5%. The rest were allocated for passengers and international flight. International flights declined a lot, by 60% approximately. In domestic flights cut a little, but we enhanced our post and cargo transportation. Regarding the structure of the airline business, it's not a secret. We all work with this structure. We serve our passengers. We paint flights, planes, transport cargoes. And what I'd like to pay attention to is the services. The catering, and something that is not used in Russia, it is luggage handling. This service is really in high demand and popular with our passengers. Any person in Tokyo, a tourist or a local, can order the shipment of the luggage from their home to the destination, up to the airport or the end destination. For example, if they fly from Tokyo to Moscow in any city, they can give the luggage to the carrier, and then they obtain the luggage when they arrive to Moscow. And the second service is the service when you go to Tokyo, not a Japanese citizen. You give your luggage and then get it at your destination country. We never mishandle the luggage, and it is a convenient and pretty popular service. And other businesses that support our company in survival during the pandemic, it is the complex tours. We are launching the program for locals, like Russia does, with cashback. And we started it even a few months earlier. We provide business aviation. We had the international flights declined, and the business jet department is now really popular. We get far more application rather than we did. And it is believed that business aviation is the future. The Department of Business Aviation, the Department of Credit Cards, and training, drone training department. I'm going to speak about it a bit later. Next one, please. Here you can see the itinerary network of our company that we would like to have, and this is the one that we used to have. And the schedule that we planned to launch in April 2020. We wanted to launch the second facility that will work with Russia. We planned to implement 2 daily flights from Moscow and from Vladivostok. We have started implementing this program, but unfortunately our plans changed. And that's why I'd like you to see our schedule. This is it. Since November the 1st, we were allowed to fly between Russia and Japan, and we launched regular flights. Weekly, we launch such flights. We fly from Tokyo to Moscow, and we transit through Helsinki. Why we do this? We do this through the economic efficiency. This is our response to pandemic. Unfortunately, we can't do it otherwise. What about the schedule of flights? The general aviation schedule. Domestic flights. Japan is now closed for tourists. You can go to Japan only if you are a Japanese citizen. Like in general, the situation is not really favorable. Tourists can come if they have business visas, if they have medical prescriptions, or if they're students. It doesn't matter where you go precisely. You should spend 14 days in the lockdown. You should pass a test for coronavirus, and you cannot use the public transport. That's why we implement the further measures. So the schedule is updated each 2 weeks. We add or remove something. International itineraries recover as long as the situation is recovering. We do not fly as frequently as we did before the pandemic, but anyway, we are recovering slowly. Next one, please. Something is wrong here, but we had a big project in early 2020. In Moscow, we moved to Sheremetyevo Airport from Domodedovo Airport. In Tokyo, we also changed our airport, and now our company flies to Haneda Airport, the one that inside the city. And the transport accessibility is about 30-35 minutes away from the city center. And it is very convenient for transfers around the country. In general, what is the feature of our company is the extraordinary service that we provide. It is a deep service. It characterizes Japan itself. It's not only the words, we allow them to feel the atmosphere of Japanese as early as on board. It is called omotenashi. It is hospitality in Japanese, and we anticipate and we predict the wishes of our clients. And even if you don't know yet what you want to have, we will give it you even before you know you want it. Our activity aims at giving something that our passengers would like to get from the airline. For Japanese, it is vital to preserve their business and their image. Next one, please. What we do? When flights are cancelled, we always refund the full costs of the tickets. And we demand the same from our partners who distribute our tickets. We never exchange them for vouchers. If you buy our ticket, you have the right to change anything according to any tariff. You have the right to change the conditions of your ticket. There is a huge problem related to the impossibility to use the public transport. So if you fly into, we provide you with taxi tickets that worth approximately $100 or $200. It depends on the class of your ticket. So you can order taxi. I can say everything. Tomorrow we are launching another support measure kit, and it will also aim at encouraging people to fly and to feel safe. Next one.
The measures taken by any airline of the world in terms of disinfection at all our charters are mandatory. We have to follow the social distance and to wear masks. If a passenger cannot wear masks, he or she has to warn the crew in advance. I can also say that there is meticulous disinfection of the belly. Air circulation is implemented every 2-3 minutes, which is not typical of Japan Airlines. It is typical of all the airlines in the world and of the aviation area on the whole. Let me also which measures do we take in Japan for the security of our passengers? You will infer it from the images. In August 2020, the largest airports of Tokyo started testing the new technology. The passengers couldn't touch anything. They have already been tested, and they are installed all over the country. It is the hand-free technology. In order to avoid communication with the staff, information services are provided to all these robots such as avatar jet robots. You may approach them. Now they speak two languages. They speak English and Japanese still. They may suggest where you should go, where the registration zone is located, where the check-in zone is located. Artificial intelligence is located on the right side. This woman allows us to manage the AI. Well, Margarita, sorry, we are short of time. We are ahead of our timing. It will be the final stage, maybe. Yes, a few seconds. We also complete the full automation. The passengers cannot contact the staff of the airline and of the plane. Few slides. The next slide. The previous slide, please. The airline has already started developing another aspect of our cooperation. We transport others by drones. Drones are used for transporting medical equipment, and we will develop this aspect in the future. The next slide, please. In 2023, 2025, we will launch the unmanned airline taxi, which will also be applied for transporting people. I mean the vertical landing and takeoff system. It is now being tested. This social aspect means that the population will perceive this means of transport differently. In summary, let me highlight that there are a few aspects for the tourist market. I have lots of slides, but I try to be succinct. Japan is now closed. Still, all the offers for our tourists are enacted. We provide 2 international flights between Moscow and Tokyo. You may also buy the airline ticket, which will not be that costly. It is 8-fold cheaper than any other system. All our transit itineraries are open. You may fly there in a transit way without any tests, unless you leave the airport. I will not enumerate the aircrafts. This information is available everywhere. Let me thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you, Margarita. It was very contentful. Hopefully, we will get the presentation because it is not reflected completely. And we will also provide all our participants with this presentation to all our participants. Now we will switch to those who sell and manufacture technology. The floor goes to Andrei Titov, the head of the direction of 114 Power Wheel program. Well, Andrei, the floor is yours. Yes, sorry, there are some technical problems. This the representative of ILGSC. Well, Andrei, the floor is yours, and your presentation will last for 5 minutes. Yes, dear colleagues, we may start. Well, is the presentation ready? It is the question to technical services, whether we can see the presentation. Is there any connection with Andrei? Yes, my presentation appeared. Can you see it? We can just see the general slide. Let us now switch to the following part. At the beginning, we told you about our country, about its enormous distances. Not all the territories have a chance to satisfy the needs in terms of transportation. Still, their capacity and the distances are limited. There is a large outreach of regional transportations. Thus, we are implementing this plane. It is based on the IL plane. It is the Russian national plane with the oldest spare parts. And sanctions will not influence its operation. Next slide, please. The basic assembly of the plane constitutes 64 seats. The crew capacity constitutes 30 to 40 seats. We have also increased our luggage spaces. The assembly constitutes 42 seats with enlarged luggage spaces. In the liner of the fuselage, we can see it on the slide. If the consumer would like it, it may also entail 64 seats. So the interior developers, it was considered that the plane should be comfortable. It should be comparable with the exploited superjets or foreign planes. Our passengers should feel as comfortable as possible when they're in the plane. Thus, we can see the light hues, the ultra-modern seats, and all the necessary things for good service. The equipment is also leading edge. Let me also accentuate that we also offer the application zones. We are developing the transport accessibility in such regions as Siberia, the northern part of Russia. We are now existing in the market of tourism. We have satisfied the demand in this area. The tourists to Kamchatka are gaining popularity. And also the tourists to the North Pole are becoming popular. We are going to provide the tourists interested there. Thus, we need transport accessibility. For this reason, we are developing our planes. We are constructing them. We are now preparing for the first flight. It will be our first test plane. The second and the third test planes are now being assembled. They will be launched in 2022, 2023. They will be made operational. Our colleagues from airlines were present at our strategic sessions aimed at preparing the technology. We are agreeing upon our procurement. Our government is investing in the national technology, national equipment, and will soon provide transport accessibility in all the regions of our country, regardless of sanctions and external conditions. Well, that is all for today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrei.
I hope that your flight will be popular by Far East Airlines, and we are expecting this to come true. I hope that we will have special tickets, like special tickets for students, and it will take 10,000 rubles to go to Vladivostok and go to 3 cities like Khabarovsk, Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk, and Kamchatka. I've been to Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk, and there this year we are working the technical solution. And if the state supports these 10,000 rubles, then this program will be launched. I hope that these flights will be done with your vehicles. Thank you. Now let's switch to the representatives of production, manufacturers. Alexey Margintsev, sales director of Avisma. You have given some illustrative materials. Please familiarize yourself with these materials. Good afternoon. I am really grateful that you invited us, and I'm happy to meet you in person. I'd like to be brief and tell you about our aircrafts and how they're used around the world. I don't think it would be an advertisement. I'm going to be specific about each aircraft and about the experience of exploitation and operation. Pilatus was created in 1939 in Switzerland. It is an old big company, and it was creating small local aircrafts. And we were creating something like Russian AN2, and they were flying across the forests and mountains, and it took only 120 meters to land. Then we launched PC-12, and since then we have introduced a lot of modifications. Now we, in 2020, launched MJX modification, and we have released thousands of aircrafts, and they are used across the globe. There are factors why we are so popular. Firstly, it is cheap, $400 per hour. You understand that it is a pretty low price for such a big craft, like for 8 or 9 passengers. It's not really demanding. It has reliable engines, reliable climate modifications. It is a proven information. It lands on little lines. It needs just 400 meters and doesn't need any asphalt. We can land it on the metal lines. We confirmed that it is possible. And Russian company called Dexter, that is now here today, they conducted such landing. Ground, soil, snow, metal, doesn't matter. It includes 10 or 9 passengers. There is a VIP and an economy spaces. Why it is so popular? Because it is multi-modified. It can be used for cargos and passengers 50-50, medical aviation, emergency aviation, mission aviation like paratrooping. And this all can be done in one aircraft. It can be transformed. According to the practice, the most successful thing is Australian Flying Doctor. We conduct medical transfers across Australia. They have a special program. It is subsidized by the government. Regarding Russia, since 2018 until 2019, we were used by Dexter. They used to conduct charter flights, and they were conducting flights subsidized by the government. They fly among Voronezh, Moskva, Nizhny Novgorod, small cities where you can hardly find a regular flight. 70% of their costs were covered by the government. They are reliable and they have 10 live or sun service live. Why did they close? It was the decision of the owners of the company. And they were not interested in this business anymore. It wasn't the commercial point. And there is aviation company that Aerogeo. They use the planes, and they are based in Krasnoyarsk. They use it for passengers, for medical aviation purposes, and they are really satisfied with it because the plane is big, and other planes and helicopters cannot cover the entire region. The plane is used together with the helicopter. For example, the helicopters of Russia representative said that they can pick a person somewhere in a forest, and then they transfer the person to the settlement, and then the plane can bring this person to Moscow or another city. If we are talking about some critical situations when it is impossible locally to eliminate the problem and help the patient. Regarding the operation, there is a Belarus company by Sky. They exploit 3 planes. They fly across Russia and Belarus. They legally can do it thanks to the associated treaties. About the plans for the future, we work mostly with private consumers, and we would like our planes to be used by local governments, because in America and in Australia our planes are used for these very purposes. But we face the following problem. The plane is generally imported, and directly or indirectly we are told that if you claim it as made in Russia, we would have no problem with buying it, we would allocate some funds. So now we are working on it. And Pilatus is interested in placing the production facilities in Russia. So we are looking for the sites, for the partners, for the starting consumers, so that we can implement this project. The second plane that is a little bit bigger, it is not for regional purpose, it's Pilatus 24. It looks a lot like the previous one, but it includes more passengers. It is twice as expensive, and it is capable of flying for longer distances. Thank you very much, Alexei. It was very interesting to listen to you. I am convinced that within our sections we will form any advice, and we will be convinced that we can encourage these aircrafts. We can use your office to facilitate our trips. I would like to give the floor to the TV presenter of Russia 1. Being a passenger, a citizen, a tourist, what would you like to be done to improve the domestic tourism, interregional tourism, to develop itineraries? Is it needed? Is it available? And can we think of any support probable? Thank you. My project is Travel Across Russia by the Russian Investment Fund. You began our session with the idea that helicopters of Russia need support, because we have to resuscitate the industry. We shouldn't forget about helicopters. For example, on the Yamal, you cannot go on without helicopters. And if people want to see any places of interest, they should absolutely use some helicopter services. When we are talking about the sustainable development of domestic tourism in Russia, we rarely take into account the support provided by the small aircraft and helicopters. It will be difficult or even impossible, because in the reality our tourists prefer to save their time and they choose so-called staycations within 3 or 4 days, and they try to use such opportunity. So the small aircrafts will play the pivoting role here in attracting the tourist inflow. The most important thing is to provide the affordable prices for the helicopter and small aircraft flights. I think if we use the efficient approach, we will manage to settle this problem. Another thing about charter flights. In Russia, we lack them in order to facilitate the tourism. We had only 3 destinations for winter. For example, Anapa. Anapa has a lot of hotels built, and there you can get all-inclusive services, and you can come there in any time of the year because the temperature is pretty warm, and you can go there for the Christmas holiday, but it is too expensive. There are a lot of companies that launch the selling of tickets, and the ticket will cost up to 12 or 15,000 rubles, and if you book all-inclusive hotels, you just cannot afford such trips. That's why Anapa receives only Krasnodar region tourists. But I think nothing is impossible. In Bashkortostan, for example, we were speaking about unique, featureable ski resorts, but you can get there from the airport of Magnitogorsk, and I just have seen the price of the ticket next week. If we went from Moscow to Ufa, it will take you about 1.5 thousand. If you go to Magnitogorsk, the price starts from 9,000, and with luggage it will call you 11,000. And if you go to skiing resort, you will definitely need some skiing equipment. So the flight will cost you about 20,000 rubles. But I don't think it's really worth it. The difference is too big. And if you have more charter flights for a certain period, it will facilitate the inflow of tourists.
As for the weekend tours, we have already discussed that the Russians tend to choose short-term flights. They can fly there at the weekend or on Friday and then come back. And the problem is that large airlines impose the highest prices for the weekend for this stay caution pricing. It is dynamic pricing, which doesn't allow us to promote these staycation tours. If the airlines could adjust this dynamic pricing, it would be wonderful. Today we have the representatives of Javi company, airline, which is an automotive company. It has an advantage because the colleagues try to organize popular itineraries, popular trips, and they become very affordable. I mean, Moscow and other resorts. If local transporters follow the certain pricing level, the other companies neither increase the prices, and the cost of flights becomes also accessible. Flight from Moscow to Izhevsk constitutes almost 2,000 rubles, which makes the trips more available, more accessible. Thank you, and affordable. Thank you, Denis. The Privolzhsk federal region and other cities are not inextricably linked. In this case, we need the helicopters. Sometimes we cannot drive to a certain place by car. Tourists lack some issues. Let us give the floor to the partner on the partner of the the National Institute of Institution of Hospitality, the Union of Hospitality. He's in charge of the high-profile organization which is aimed at caravanning. Definitely, we arrived in a certain city, and most of us will go there by car. What hampers the car tourism? Andrei, please finalize our session. The floor is yours. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Please, the next slide. I'll be brief. Thank you for introducing me. As for the tourism which became popular in 1960s when the cars and motorcycles became available in the Soviet Union and people started traveling across the country. The next slide, please. It is dedicated to caravanning. The point of inception of caravanning is the Soviet Union. We had such comfortable modes of transport for car trips. We have also completed the special administration which implemented infrastructure for tourism in 1980 when the Olympic Games were held in Russia. It includes the special hostels, which were called railway hostels. And another part of our program is mapping. The current condition of the automotive tourism is oriented at Autostart. We had over 43 million owners of cars in 2013. Car trips are becoming more and more popular, and they were trendy even last year. And the pandemic has accelerated it. It has shown to the society that this kind of tourism takes place. There is also the Zero Low magazine. According to its data, 67% of travelers were going to travel by car in 2019. As for 2020, these figures were a little bit lower, constituted almost 6%, 6.6%, and in autumn it constituted over 60%, according to our questionnaires. Well, the next slide, please. Let me highlight that the average family traveling by car is the mass market segment, which contributes to car travelers across the country, and tourism connects all the other kinds of tourism. There is some exploration tourism, agritourism, active kinds of vacation, family vacation. We had for all these trips by car. And the season of mass vacation is summer. We need a large number of accommodation means. As for other kinds of there are some kinds of car tourism, such as outlander tourism, when people purchase microbuses, minivans, and they keep traveling. And we are developing this movement in our country. There are 3,000 caravanning families in our country. The next slide, please. Modern automotive tourists also create the internal inflow. Over the last 20 years, large commercial communities have been formed in our country, which create their own itineraries, organize different package tours, and competition and different trips to the sites, to the natural sites. Which factors determine the community? Currently, there are 4 travel agencies in tourism which arrange tours across Russia for foreigners or for domestic tourists, and the system is called Fly and Drive. Drive in Russia is one of the most famous companies which organizes the trips in Russia for those who come from Southeastern Asia, and for some other foreigners. They have restructured them, and now they make these trips across Russia. Here you can see the caravanning structure, and we will emphasize it. We lack campings and camping stations, and the factor that slows down the car tourism in our country is the absence of camping sites. When we head for the south, we understand that all the kinds of campings are overbooked. Now we come to the linking part of our tourism. I mean the modern highway. Our trips are of high quality, and it's time to think of our infrastructure. The modern highway doesn't only mean safe trips, but it is also a social network. We should drive our cars in order to contribute to tourism development. We would like to create more service zones of recreation, which have tourist information and tourist information centers. The travelers shouldn't only relax, but they will also be informed of the tourist sites. in these districts. Thank you very much, Andrei. Unfortunately, the organizers tell us to finalize the session. Well, you can see the presentation, and I can send it to you. Yes, it is time to finalize the presentation. Now we will have the event with the head of our republic. Thank you for your presentation. It was a very illustrative example of car tourism, which allows us to enhance the board situation of civil aviation. Thanks to car sharing in Novosibirsk, there are lots of vacationers who come to Novosibirsk, who lease the car and go to Altai for a few days, for 4 to 5 days. Car leasing costs 12,000 rubles. If there are 4 people in the car, it is very affordable. It can, as for peak seasons, it is impossible to buy tickets to Barnaul because they are too costly. Definitely, this opportunity is unique. You land here by plane, and then you develop the special infrastructure so that you could understand which catering needs we have, and it will be civilized and high level. We would like to thank you all for your presentation. We did our utmost to consider the international manufacturers of technology, light aircrafts. Let me also mention that we will enact the resolution in the near future. It will contain such theses as subsidizing the helicopter itineraries, launching routes of light aircrafts. I mean, the cities of the Golden Ring, your boards may be utilized. We also have a chance to travel across Samara, Ufa, Kazan, Nizhny Novgorod. These itineraries will be circular thanks to these small planes. For this reason, we have to change our legislation, and we also need governmental support. Thank you, dear colleagues, for your presentations. You may send your questions to all the speakers. The presentations will be uploaded on the special resources, the general resources of the forum. Now I can give my visit card to all of you. Let us keep our work, and it will be even more intensive. It is not only the matter of this forum. Thank you very much.